Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another card video at my YouTube channel and blog. Today I'm starting out with some watercolor paper. This is some Strathmore cold press watercolor paper, and I'm taking some Tombow markers and scribbling them onto a piece of acetate or window plastic or anything with a slick surface. And I'm going to be spraying them with water and then smushing it down onto my watercolor paper. This is going to give me a really fun watercolor effect. And I love doing this particular technique because it's so unpredictable and you get very organic shapes and color mixing. So I'm spraying that just with a spray bottle. I'm using the Tim Holtz Distress Sprayer, but you could use whatever spray bottle you have. I'm going to flip this over very carefully and press that down onto my watercolor paper. Now the card design I have in mind has just the watercolor at the bottom of the card, so I'm only focusing on adding color to the bottom half of this watercolor paper. I'm going to take a paper towel and sop up a lot of that water that's kind of pooling at the bottom of this watercolor paper. All those colors are mixing and creating a really ugly brown shade, but I can just sop that up with my paper towel and then move on. So I'm using my heat tool to heat up this paper and speed up the drying process. And then I'm going to come in with some additional layers of color. I'm going to put down this blue color because there isn't enough blue, I don't think. I'm going to use some more yellow as well. That pink really took over, so I'm not going to be adding any pink to this layer of color. I'll spray that with my spray bottle once more, and then very carefully flip this over. I'm going to put that right over that center area because I want some of the pink and blue to mix and make it purple. And I'm also going to drag this piece of acetate or plastic kind of along some of the edges on my watercolor piece. This is going to give me some of those really fun kind of harder edges, like on the edge of that blue. I really love how that looks. You can tell that the paper is textured when you do that. I really love that look. So I'm going to kind of drag my piece of plastic across the page to get some more shapes and areas like that. I'm going to add some more purple this time. I didn't use a purple marker until now, but I really liked how a little bit of that purple in the center looked, so I thought it needed a little bit more of an intense shade. So this is more of like a pinky purple, but I think it works well. And here's where I was pushing in all of those areas with the edge of my acetate. This is just going to give me some of those kind of more drier edges. So I'm just going to add a few water droplets on top. I actually let this dry, and then I sprayed water into the palm of my hand and flicked the water onto the watercolor paper. Because this is a water-based dye ink in the marker, you can reactivate it with water. So when I sprinkled on the water and then picked that up with a paper towel, it leaves behind these wet spots. So now I'm going to use this die set from Paper Smooches, and I think this is such a fun die set. And I'm going to use a ruler to help line this up on my cardstock. Because this is going to be the front of the card, I'm deciding to not separate these dies. You could definitely use them apart from each other, but I think they look really cool just the way they are. So I wanted to make sure those were nice and straight on the front of my card. I run that through my die cutting machine, and then pulled that out and pushed it aside. And now I'm using another sentiment from Paper Smooches, and I've cut that out of some Neenah Desert Storm cardstock. The white that I'm using is Neenah Solar White. So I'm just placing that over the top of my watercolor paper so I can figure out what corner I want the card to be in, and then I trimmed it down with my paper trimmer. The card base I'm using today is made out of some Neenah Solar White 110-pound cardstock, and I put some Tombow Extreme Adhesive on the back of my watercolor piece and then put that directly onto the front of the card. I'm going to have that die cut area popped up off the surface of the watercolor paper, so I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any additional bulk, so I put that watercolor piece directly onto the card base. So I'm lining these up, and I'm putting it on, sanding it up so it's easier to line up perfectly, and then pressing that down. And I just used a bunch of foam adhesive and cut the tape to be a little more narrow so that it would fit in between all those little arrow die cuts. So now I'm using the You Are Loved dies that I cut out earlier, and I'm using my Tim Holtz craft pick just to get that position just right on the front of my card. And then I'll individually pick up each word, apply some Ranger Multimedia Matte Adhesive on the back, and then using tweezers, I'm placing that back into that formation of the words that I created before. So I'll go ahead and press that down and then adhere everything. I'm also going to take the tiny heart die set from Paper Smooches and cut out some additional little hearts out of that same color of cardstock, which was Nina Desert Storm. And then I glued that down. So now I'm using some Ranger Glossy Accents to add some shine and gloss to the words and also to the hearts. And some of it kind of oozed off the edges of the words, but I just used a craft knife to scrape away any of that excess glossy accents that fell off the edge of the die cuts. So that is my card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. This is a super simple and easy card, but you could recreate this with a variety of different backgrounds, not just watercolor. Thanks so much for watching today, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.